The night before the final scholarship exams, the school's golden girl, Sienna Huntington, suggested we head to the bar for a wild night. She filled a glass with straight tequila and flashed a wide, sugary smile as she leaned into my space. I've heard our class president can hold her liquor better than anyone. If you don't drink this, you're totally blowing me off, Yara. The rest of our classmates started cheering and shouting along. Come on, Yara. We finally have a chance to relax. Don't be a buzzkill now in my past life. The moment she said those words, I immediately called our homeroom teacher. The teacher arrived and shut down the party, which resulted in Sienna getting a major disciplinary mark on her record. She skipped the finals the next day out of spite, becoming the only one in our class who didn't get into college. After the results came out, the whole class cornered me in the girls' restroom and shoved my head into a toilet. Sienna was just trying to help us distress you, bitch. Why did you have to call the teacher? If it weren't for you, she wouldn't have been disciplined, and she wouldn't have drowned in that river. After getting drunk and depressed, they ignored my desperate thrashing and held my head under the water until I drew my last breath. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in that dimly lit bar. Sienna was standing right there holding the glass out to me this time. I took the glass from her hand and gave her a genuine, bright smile. Sure thing. Whoever heads home first tonight is a total loser. The music seemed to thud in the background as the entire booth went silent for a second. Sienna's hand, still holding the empty air where the glass had been, froze midair. The classmates surrounding us exchanged confused glances. Did I hear that right? The class president actually agreed. Isn't she the one who lives by the rules? She was literally memorizing SAT vocab during our spring break trip. The world ending tomorrow. I laughed, took the tequila shot from Sienna and downed it in one go. The burning sensation slid down my throat, feeling strangely like victory. The finals are tomorrow morning. You're right, Sienna. We really need to let loose tonight. You're so thoughtful. Sienna's face stiffened. Her lips parted, but she couldn't find the right words to say. The atmosphere shifted into something awkward and tense. Suddenly, a strong arm reached out and pulled Sienna into a protective, possessive embrace. It was Jasper Sterling, my childhood best friend. We grew up right across the street from each other. My mom used to bring over casseroles for his family, and his dad helped mine fix the plumbing. We had 18 years of history, but the way he looked at me now was colder than ice. Yara Hansley, what kind of game are you playing now? I don't care what twisted plan you have this time. I'm going to make sure she stays safe from you. The surrounding classmates nodded fervently, looking at me with righteous indignation. Jasper is right. We need to keep a close eye on her tonight. I stared at Jasper, feeling a dull ache in my chest. The sheer hatred in his eyes was all too familiar. In my previous life in that disgusting restroom, he had looked at me with that exact same gaze. He was the one who gripped the back of my neck and forced my head into the toilet water. The icy water had filled my nose and lungs. I had clawed at the porcelain rim until my fingernails bled, gasping for air that never came. And behind him, my entire class had stood watching. No one stopped him. No one called 911. They even recorded it on their phones and posted it to the class group chat with the caption, "Justice for Sienna." I suddenly felt like laughing out loud. In my past life, I had practically killed myself caring for this class. I collected assignments, tracked attendance, and organized study groups. I followed every rule the teacher set. 3 days before the finals, I was still staying up until 2, and am organizing study guides for Sienna, showing up to school the next day with massive, dark circles under my eyes. I lowered my gaze to hide the mockery in my eyes, and forced an apologetic smile onto my face. Why would you say that? I really think Sienna is right. However, I pressed a hand to my stomach and frowned slightly. That shot was a bit strong. My stomach feels a little weird. I'm going to hit the restroom. Hold on. Sienna poked her head out from Jasper's chest and grabbed my wrist firmly. I turned back to look at her. Her eyes were already turning red, making her look like a victim who had been horribly wronged. Yara, that drink wasn't strong at all. You're in such a rush to leave. Do you just think you're better than me? I stood there momentarily stunned by her performance. Sienna's tears started falling right on cue, one by one like a perfectly timed movie scene. I know you've always looked down on me. I have the worst grades and I drag the class average down. You make sure to post the rank list right next to the blackboard every time just to watch me get humiliated. And those practice sets, you force me to rewrite the wrong answers 10 times each. I couldn't even finish them by 3 a.m. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. The practice sets were an assignment from Mr. Jordan. Every student below the average had to do them. The rank list is a school-wide policy for every classroom. I don't get a say in that. As for the 10 repetitions, I looked Sienna straight in the eye. You were the one who said you couldn't remember anything and asked me for a solution. I told you that repetition was the most effective way. You chose to do it. Sienna's crying intensified. So you're admitting it? You only treated me that way because my grades were bad. She clutched Jasper's sleeve, her body trembling with her sobs. Jasper, she's never respected me. I closed my eyes, realizing that explain meaning anything was a waste of time. Trying to reason with people who have already decided. You're the villain is the stupidest thing you can do. I turned to walk away, but Jasper grabbed my arm with a crushing grip. You think you can just leave? Jasper's face went cold. Apologize to Sienna now. I looked back at him, Then the other classmates started chiming in. Yara, you went way too far this time. If she wants to leave, let her. We don't need a buzzkill here. My face hardened. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not apologizing for shit. Jasper's expression turned truly vicious. If you don't apologize, you aren't leaving this booth tonight. The others joined in the chorus of threats. Exactly. Don't let her go. She's such a teacher's pet. If she leaves now, she's definitely going to snitch to Mr. Jordan. Jasper snatched my phone and tossed it into a dark corner, then signaled to two guys sitting nearby. They immediately stood up and blocked my path, dragging me back toward the corner of the leather booth. I tried to get up 3 times, and every time they shoved me back down. The last time they were especially rough. I slammed back into the sofa and my vision blurred. For a second, nobody cared. I clenched my fist so hard. My nails dug into my palms. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Fiona Miller, the quiet study rep, sitting next to me. She was staring down at her phone. She was the only one who hadn't joined in on the harassment. I leaned in and lowered my voice. Fiona, the finals are tomorrow. Are you really going to spend the whole night drinking here? Your goal is an Ivy League scholarship. You worked so hard for this. Fiona's fingers faltered. She looked up at me, a flicker of hesitation crossing her face. Fiona. Sienna tilted her head toward us. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Are you planning on being an outsider like the class president? Fiona's face went pale instantly. She quickly looked back down at her phone, and didn't spare me another glance. Just then my phone, lying in the corner, lit up. The name Mr. Jordan flashed across the screen. Jasper's face darkened immediately. He grabbed the phone, swiped to reject the call, and then turned his glare toward me. Yara, you actually had the guts to text the teacher? You really are a piece of work, aren't you? Several guys stood up looking at me like I was a traitor to the pack. I clenched my hands, trying to keep my voice as calm as possible. You guys have studied for 12 years. You've done thousands of practice problems, and pulled countless all-nighters. The finals are tomorrow. If you get wasted now, how are you going to even function at the testing center? A few people in the booth lowered their heads, their glasses hovering mid-air. Fiona's hand twitched as she quietly pushed her beer bottle away. The president actually has a point. Tomorrow is the big day after all. Sienna suddenly let out a soft laugh. Yara, like you said, the test is tomorrow. We can worry about tomorrow when it gets here. It's only 10 p.m. We have plenty of time. She took a dainty sip of her drink, her tone airy and light. Are you so desperate to get everyone to leave because you care about their grades? Or do you just love bossing us around? Jasper immediately jumped in. Exactly. She's just trying to scare everyone. Sienna is right. It's early. Stop being such a drag. The hesitant classmates looked at each other, then picked their glasses back up. I took a deep breath and realized I was done talking to these lunatics. Move. I pushed past the guy blocking me and headed straight for the exit. Yara, stop right there. Jasper lunged forward and blocked the door. You're going to snitch, aren't you? I'm not telling anyone anything. I looked him dead in the eye. I just want to go home, sleep and take my exam tomorrow. Who are you lying to? A girl like you. The second you step out that door, you're making a phone call. Sienna sobbed and added, Yara, if you don't have something to hide, why are you so desperate to leave? My patience finally snapped. I leave when I want to. I don't need a permit from you people. I shoved Jasper's arm aside and reached for the door handle. The hell you are, Jasper snarled, grabbing my shoulder, and throwing me back toward the sofa with all his strength. The back of my head hit the frame, and my vision went black for a moment. Slam. The heavy door to the VIP booth was suddenly kicked open. Mr. Jordan stood in the doorway, his face red and dripping with sweat. Sienna Huntington, what on earth are you doing here with the whole class? He marched into the room, snatched the glass out of Sienna's hand, and smashed it onto the floor. The night before the finals, you brought the entire class to a bar to get wasted. Are you even students? Underage drinking is a crime. Do you have any idea what you've done? He pulled out his phone, his fingers shaking as he started dialing. I'm calling the police right now. I'm making sure a degenerate like you ends up in juvie. Sienna's face drained of all color. Jasper stepped forward, shielding Sienna with his body. Mr. Jordan, you've got it all wrong. This wasn't Sienna's idea. Yara Hansley is the one who dragged us all here. My pupils constricted in shock. The surrounding students froze for half a second before they all caught on. Yeah, that's right. The class president insisted on coming. She said she wanted to help us relax. We told her we shouldn't, but she practically forced us to come. Fiona opened her mouth as if to say something, but then quickly looked back down. Sienna peeked out from behind Jasper, looking at the teacher with tear-filled eyes. Mr. Jordan, Yara said it was her treat. I was too scared to say no. The teacher frowned, turning his gaze toward me. Yara Hensley, did you really organize this? I looked at Jasper. He was staring at me with a vicious, threatening glare. That told me exactly what would happen if I denied it. Sienna bit her lip, her tears ready to overflow. Suddenly I smiled. Yeah, it was me. I had nothing better to do, so I figured I'd buy everyone some drinks. Mr. Jordan's face fell. I am so incredibly disappointed in you, Yara. Everyone else get out. Go home and study. You have an exam tomorrow. Jasper grabbed Sienna's hand and led her toward the door. As he brushed past me, he leaned in and hissed. Smart move. I leaned against the wall and watched their silhouettes vanish. through the doorway, through the glass door of the bar. I watched them cross the street and enter another bar, with even brighter neon lights. I didn't follow them. The next morning on my way to the testing center, I saw a post Sienna had made on social media at 3 a.m. The video was a blur of flashing lights. She was holding a drink, her cheeks flushed red, practically hanging off of Jasper. Jasper had his arm around her waist, their faces inches apart. The rest of the class was cheering and clapping in the background. The loud audio made my ears ring. Then, they locked arms and downed their drinks together in a messy toast. Sienna drank too fast, and the liquid spilled from the corners of her mouth, dripping down her chin and neck into her shirt. Jasper's throat moved as he swallowed, and then he reached out to wipe the spill from her chin. The gesture was so natural. It looked like he'd done it 1,000 times. The whistling in the background was deafening. Jasper is the man. Sienna and Jasper are the perfect couple. Get a room already. The video was clear up to that point. Then the quality turned grainy. The camera was shaking violently, probably because the person filming was also wasted. The final frame showed a trash table with a dozen empty beer bottles, and a massive puddle of spilled liquid on the tablecloth. Then it ended. The timestamp was 2 a.m. I turned off my phone and let out a cold snort. I walked into the testing center, my steps steady and firm. This was the moment I officially walked away from my past life. Meanwhile, back at the bar, Jasper finally jerked awake. His face was as white as a sheet, and his head felt like it was being split open by an axe. Classmates were passed out all over the booth. Sienna was curled up on the sofa next to him. The door to the booth was wide open, and the hallway outside was dead silent. Jasper's voice trembled as he spoke. What time is it? The clock on the wall let out a soft chime. It was 10 more and the final exams had already started an hour ago. The testing center hummed with the quiet scratch of pencils, and the occasional nervous cough. I found my seat by the window, row 7, seat 12, just like the admission ticket said. The morning sun streamed through the blinds, casting striped shadows across my desk. I pressed my palm flat against the cold surface and breathed. In my past life, I never made it to this room. I never got to sit for these exams. Instead, I was buried in a cemetery 6 miles from here, my headstone reading beloved daughter. A lie, because no one who loved me had attended the funeral except my mother, who collapsed onto the fresh dirt and had to be carried away by paramedics. But that was then. Now I pulled out my number 2 pencils, 5 of them freshly sharpened, and arranged them in a neat row. The proctor, a tired woman with reading glasses perched on her nose, began distributing answer booklets. Turn off all electronic devices, she droned. You will have 3 hours. No talking. No leaving your seat except for emergencies. Begin when you hear the signal. The clock on the wall ticked toward 8 a.m. Somewhere across town, Jasper was probably just waking up. His head would be pounding. His mouth would taste like regret and cheap tequila. He'd look at his phone, see the time, and feel his stomach drop into a dark pit. Sienna would be worse off. She'd drunk more than anyone. I'd made sure of that. Every time she tried to slow down, someone from the class would cheer her on, and Sienna Huntington had never been able to resist an audience. Her last social media post was at 3:47 a.m., a blurry selfie caption, "Best night ever." The best night ever. I almost laughed out loud. Ding. The signal rang through the room. I flipped open my booklet and read the first question. English literature. A passage from The Great Gatsby. The part where Nick Carraway realizes that Gatsby's dream was already dead, that Daisy could never love him the way he needed. I smiled and started writing. Jasper Sterling woke up face down on a sticky leather booth. His skull felt like someone had taken a hammer to it from the inside. Every pulse of blood sent fresh waves of nausea through his stomach. He groaned and tried to move, but his limbs felt like they were filled with wet sand. Jasper. A voice croaked beside him. He turned his head. A mistake. The room spun violently, and he had to close his eyes and breathe through his mouth for a full minute before he could open them again. Sienna was curled up next to him, her perfect hair matted against her cheek, mascara smeared down to her chin like dark tears. Her shirt, a white silk blouse she'd probably spent an hour choosing, was stained with something red and sticky. Wine, or maybe a cocktail. She looked nothing like the golden girl who'd walked into this bar 12 hours ago. What time is it? She whispered. Jasper fumbled for his phone. The screen was cracked. He didn't remember dropping it, but it still lit up. 10:03 a.m. The exam, Sienna breathed. Her face went white beneath the mascara streaks. Jasper, the exam started at 9. No. He shook his head then winced. No, that's not right. We set an alarm. I set an alarm. He checked his phone history. 3 missed alarms, all swiped away. He didn't remember doing that either. Around them, the rest of the class was starting to stir. Someone threw up in the corner. The wet, violent sound of it made Jasper's stomach lurch. A girl started crying. A guy stumbled toward the bathroom, his shoes squeaking on the beer-slick floor. What do we do? Sienna grabbed his arm, her nails digging in. Jasper, what do we do? He looked at the door. The hallway beyond was silent. The bar was closed now. No music, no lights except the dim emergency overheads. A janitor had probably come through hours ago, seen them passed out, and decided it wasn't worth the trouble to wake them. We go, he said. We go right now. Maybe they'll let us in late. He pulled Sienna to her feet. She swayed dangerously, and he had to catch her by the waist to keep her from falling. For a moment, they stood there in the wreckage of the booth, Empty bottles, spilled drinks, someone's abandoned heels. And Jasper felt something cold settle into his chest. This wasn't an accident. None of this was an accident. Yara had done this. Yara had smiled that bright smile and said sure thing, and whoever heads home first tonight is a total loser. And they'd all been so busy hating her that they hadn't stopped to wonder why she'd changed. She'd set a trap, and they'd walked right into it. Hurry, he said, his voice tight. We can still make it. They didn't. The proctor stopped them at the door. I'm sorry, she said, not sounding sorry at all. The exam started an hour ago. No one is permitted to enter after the first section has begun. But we're here now, Jasper argued. His voice came out rough, desperate. We just overslept. It was an accident. Please. The rules are clear. The proctor crossed her arms. You'll have to speak to the exam coordinator. She's in room 204. Room 204 was a small office with gray walls and a single window that faced the parking lot. The coordinator, a woman named Mrs. Chun with steel gray hair and glasses that magnified her eyes to an unsettling size, listened to their story without changing expression. So you're telling me, she said slowly, that the entire graduating class of Northwood Academy overslept on the morning of the most important exam of your lives? It wasn't oversleeping, Sienna said. Her voice was watery, fragile. Someone tricked us. She took us to a bar and underage drinking, Mrs. Chun interrupted. That's what you're admitting to, because if that's the case, I'm required to report it to the school board and to law enforcement. Sienna's mouth snapped shut. Jasper stepped forward. Look, we don't care about the report. We just want to take the exam. We've studied for this for months. Years. Please, isn't there some kind of exception? A makeup date. Mrs. Chun removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. There is a makeup date, she said. For students with documented medical emergencies or family tragedies. Not for students who decided to get drunk the night before. There was a tragedy, Sienna blurted out. My grandmother died. Last night. I was too upset to think straight, and Jasper was just trying to comfort me, and the rest of the class came because they wanted to support me. Mrs. Chun raised an eyebrow. Your grandmother? Yes. What's her name? Sienna's face went blank. Don't lie to me, young lady. I've been doing this job for 23 years. I can spot a lie from across the room. Mrs. Chun leaned back in her chair. The makeup exam is in 3 weeks. You're eligible to take it, but there's a catch. What catch? Jasper asked. Your scores will be penalized by 15%. That's the policy for unexcused absences. It's non-negotiable. 15%. Jasper did the math in his head. He'd been averaging around 1450 on practice tests. A 15% reduction would bring him down to 1230, barely above average. Not good enough for any of the schools he'd been targeting. Not even close. Sienna must have been doing the same calculation, because her face crumpled. She turned and walked out of the office without another word, her heels clicking down the hallway until the sound faded away. Jasper stood there for a long moment, staring at the floor. Is there anything else? Mrs. Chun asked. He shook his head and left. I finished my exam at 10:45 a.m., 45 minutes early. I didn't rush. I went through every question twice, checked my bubbling sheet 3 times, and sat quietly while the students around me sweated and cursed under their breath. When I finally stood up and walked my booklet to the proctor, she gave me a surprised look. Finished already? I'm confident in my answers, I said. She shrugged and waved me toward the door. The hallway was empty. Most of the other students were still working, their heads bent over their desks like they were trying to memorize every word before time ran out. I walked past their closed doors, my footsteps echoing on the tile floor, and pushed through the exit into the morning sun. The air was cool and clean. The parking lot was mostly empty, just a few cars belonging to staff and the handful of students who'd arrived early. I found a bench near the front entrance and sat down, pulling out my phone. 17 messages in the class group chat. I opened it. Marcus. Did anyone else oversleep? I woke up at 9:45 and my head is killing me. Tiffany. Same, I just got to the testing center and they wouldn't let me in. WTF do I do? Kevin. They said there's a makeup exam in 3 weeks, but they take 15% off your score. Marcus, 15%? Are you serious? Tiffany. This is insane. Whose idea was it to go out last night anyway? Kevin. It was Sienna's idea. She's the one who kept buying rounds. Tiffany. She said Yara invited us. Kevin. She said that to Mr. Jordan. But we all know Yara never wanted to go. Tiffany. Then why did she drink that shot? Kevin. I don't know, but this is bad. My parents are going to kill me. Tiffany. Same. My dad literally paid for a tutor and everything. Lily, guys, stop fighting. We need to figure out what to tell our parents. Marcus. We say we got food poisoning. Tiffany. All of us at the same time? Marcus. It's plausible. Lily. It's not plausible at all, but it's better than the truth. Kevin. Where's Sienna? She should be the one dealing with this. It was her plan. Marcus. She's probably still drunk tbh. Lily. I saw her leave the testing center like 20 minutes ago. She looked really upset. Tiffin. Good. She should be upset. I scrolled through the messages, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to type something. I told you so, or maybe don't bully your class president next time. But I knew better than to engage. Anything I said would be twisted around and used against me. They'd find a way to blame me for this too. Instead, I put my phone away and watched the clouds drift across the sky. 3 weeks until the makeup exam. That gave them time to study, if they used it wisely. But I knew they wouldn't. They'd spend the first week complaining, the second week panicking, and the third week cramming in a desperate, caffeine-fueled frenzy that wouldn't stick. I, on the other hand, had already taken the exam. My answers were solid. I'd done the work. For the first time in 2 lives, I wasn't afraid of the future. They found me 3 days later. I was sitting in the school library, working on my college application essays, when the door slammed open and 6 people walked in. Jasper led the group, his jaw tight and his eyes bloodshot. Sienna followed behind him, looking smaller than usual, wrapped in an oversized hoodie that swallowed her hands. Behind them came Marcus, Tiffany, Kevin, and Lily, the inner circle, the ones who'd held my head underwater in my past life. The librarian, Mrs. Patterson, looked up from her desk. "This is a quiet study area." "We'll be quiet," Jasper said, not looking at her. His eyes were fixed on me. "Mrs. Patterson glanced between us, then shrugged and went back to her crossword puzzle. Jasper walked to my table and stopped on the other side. "We need to talk." I set down my pen. "I'm busy. This isn't optional." He pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. The others fanned out behind him, blocking the aisle. Just like the bathroom, just like the bar. The same formation, the same players. The same performance. "Yara," Sienna said, her voice small and trembling. "We know what you did." "What did I do?" "You sabotaged us." Jasper's voice was low, dangerous. "You knew we'd stay out too late. You encouraged it. You made that stupid bet about who'd go home first just to keep us there longer." "I didn't force anyone to drink." "No, you just smiled and acted like you were having fun for the first time in your entire boring life." He leaned forward. "You tricked us." I looked at him. Really looked at him. In my past life, Jasper Sterling had been my best friend. We'd built snowmen in his front yard when we were 7. He'd carried my backpack when I sprained my ankle in 9th grade. He'd shown up at my door at midnight after my father left, just to sit with me while I cried. Now he sat across from me with murder in his eyes, and I felt nothing. "Jasper," I said calmly, "who suggested going to the bar?" He blinked. "What? Who suggested? The bar?" Silence. Sienna shifted behind him. "It was a group thing." "No." I held up a hand. I remember very clearly. Sienna came up to me after homeroom and said, and I quote, I pitched my voice higher, mimicking her sugary tone. "The night before the final scholarship exams, we should head to the bar for a wild night." I dropped the act. She suggested it. She handed me the glass. She made the bet about who could hold their liquor better. "She was just trying to be nice," Jasper said. "She was trying to get everyone drunk so they'd bomb the exams." I smiled. Which is exactly what happened. So if anyone sabotaged anyone, it was Sienna sabotaging all of you. Sienna's face went red. "That's not true. I would never." "You posted at 3 a.m. I pulled out my phone and swiped to her profile. "Here. Look at the timestamp. Best night ever." "You were still drinking 4 hours before the exam started. That's not trying to relax. That's self-sabotage." Jasper grabbed the phone from my hand and stared at the screen. The color drained from his face. Sienna stammered. I didn't mean." "She's lying," Marcus said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "She's just trying to turn us against Sienna." "I'm not turning anyone against anyone." I stood up, tucking my essay into my bag. "I'm just stating facts. You were all there. You saw what happened. The only thing I did differently this time was participate instead of calling the teacher." The air in the room shifted. Kevin frowned. "What do you mean, this time?" I slung my bag over my shoulder. "Nothing. I'm leaving." "Wait." Jasper grabbed my arm. The same crushing grip from the bar. "We're not done." I looked at his hand on my arm. Then I looked at his face. "Take your hand off me," I said quietly. "Or I'll file a harassment report with the principal. And this time, I won't be the only one with a disciplinary mark on my record." He didn't let go. "Jasper," Tiffany said nervously, "maybe we should just." "She's not going to file anything." Jasper's voice was hard. "She's all talk. She's been all talk her whole life." I pulled my phone out of my pocket with my free hand. "Hello, principal's office? I'd like to report." Jasper snatched the phone and threw it across the room. It hit the wall and cracked, the screen spiderwebbed, the case popping off and skittering under a bookshelf. "Oh," I said softly. "That was a mistake." "What are you going to do, cry about it?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're nothing, Yara. You've always been nothing. You think getting a good score on some stupid exam is going to change that? You think anyone cares about you?" I looked past him at the others. Marcus had his arms crossed, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. Tiffany was staring at the floor. Kevin looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. And Sienna was smiling. Small and secret. Hidden behind her curtain of hair, but unmistakable. She was enjoying this. In my past life, I would have cried. I would have begged them to stop. I would have apologized for things I didn't do, just to make the hurting stop. But I wasn't that person anymore. "Mrs. Patterson," I called out, raising my voice. "Could you come here, please?" The librarian looked up. "Is there a problem?" "These students are harassing me. They destroyed my phone and threatened me. I'd like you to witness the situation while I call my mother." Mrs. Patterson's expression shifted. She stood up, her sensible shoes squeaking on the linoleum, and walked toward us. Young man, take your hand off that girl right now. Jasper didn't move. Now, Mrs. Patterson said, and there was steel in her voice. Or I'll call security myself. Jasper released me like I was on fire. He stepped back, his chest heaving, his face twisted with rage. This isn't over. Yes, it is. I picked up my bag and walked to the door. You made your choice. You chose her. I glanced at Sienna, who was no longer smiling. Now you get to live with it. I left them standing there, surrounded by broken glass and the smell of old books. 3 weeks passed. I didn't go to school. I'd already completed all my graduation requirements, and my counselor had given me permission to study from home. My mother didn't ask questions. She was too relieved that I wasn't locking myself in my room anymore, that I was eating regular meals, that I seemed genuinely happy for the first time in years. I didn't tell her about the past life. I didn't tell anyone. Instead, I wrote. I filled 3 notebooks with essays, stories, plans. I applied to 12 colleges. Not just the safe ones, but the reaches, the dreams, the schools I'd never had the confidence to consider before. I sent off my applications with a feeling of quiet satisfaction, like I was releasing doves into the sky. The makeup exam fell on a rainy Tuesday. I didn't go to the testing center. I didn't need to, but I heard about it from the class group chat. I'd been lurking there, watching the drama unfold like a soap opera I didn't star in. Marcus, that exam was impossible. I didn't even finish the math section. Tiffany, same. I guessed on like half of it. Kevin, the curve is going to be brutal. Lily, does anyone know how the 15% penalty works exactly? Like, do they take it off our raw score or our scaled score? Marcus, does it even matter? We're all screwed anyway. Tiffany, where's Sienna? She didn't show up to the makeup. Kevin, seriously? Tiffany, yeah, I didn't see her at the testing center. Marcus, that's crazy. She's just not going to college at all. Tiffany, I guess not. Kevin, her parents must be freaking out. Marcus, they probably don't even know yet. She's probably still in bed. Lily, I can't believe this. She ruined all of our scores and she doesn't even care. Tiffany, I told you guys. It was her idea from the beginning. Marcus, we all heard her say it was Yara's idea. Tiffany, yeah, because she lied. She's always lying. I don't know why any of you still believe anything she says. Kevin, what about Jasper? Tiffany, what about him? Kevin, he's the one who threw Yara's phone. Tiffany, yeah, well, Jasper's obsessed with Sienna. He'd do anything for her. Marcus, that's not healthy. Tiffany, no, it's not. But try telling him that. I put down my phone and stared at the ceiling. In my past life, Sienna had failed the exam and drowned herself in a river, drunk and depressed. That was the story the class had told themselves, the tragedy that justified their cruelty. She was just trying to help us de-stress, you bitch. If it weren't for you, she wouldn't have drowned. But now Sienna was very much alive. She'd skipped the makeup exam by choice, not because she was grieving or depressed, but because she couldn't face the consequences of her own actions. The narrative had broken, and I wanted to see what would replace it. Jasper showed up at my house the next week. It was late, almost 10 p.m., and I was in my pajamas, eating cereal out of the box and watching a documentary about deep-sea creatures. The doorbell rang 3 times before I got up to answer it. He stood on my porch, soaked through from the rain, his hair plastered to his forehead. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, his shirt wrinkled, his hands shaking. Yara, he said. Can I come in? I leaned against the doorframe. No, please. I need to talk to someone. My parents aren't speaking to me. Sienna won't answer my calls. The whole class is acting like I don't exist anymore. That sounds hard. It is. His voice cracked. I don't know what to do. I thought I was doing the right thing. Protecting her. Standing up for her. But now everyone's saying, he stopped, swallowed. Everyone's saying she planned it. That she wanted everyone to fail so she wouldn't be the only one. I waited. Is it true? He looked at me, his eyes desperate. Did she really? Did I ruin everything for nothing? In my past life, I would have comforted him. I would have told him it wasn't his fault, that Sienna had manipulated him, that he was just trying to be a good friend. I would have opened my arms and let him cry on my shoulder, because that's what I did. I fixed things, I soothed wounds, I made everyone feel better at my own expense. But I wasn't that person anymore. Yes, I said. She planned it. She's been planning it for months. She knew she couldn't pass the exams, so she decided to make sure no one else could either. And you? I smiled, flat and cold. You were her perfect weapon. Loyal, aggressive, completely blind to her flaws. You did exactly what she wanted you to do. Jasper's face crumpled. I didn't know. Didn't you? She was always like this, Jasper. She's been like this since freshman year. You just didn't want to see it. I didn't. He grabbed the doorframe, his knuckles white. I really didn't. I thought she was just misunderstood. That everyone was too hard on her. That she just needed someone to believe in her. Someone did believe in her. I tilted my head. You. And look where it got you. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Why are you being like this? He whispered. You used to be kind. You used to care. I used to be a doormat, I corrected. I used to set myself on fire to keep other people warm. And you know what I got for it? I leaned closer. I got my head shoved in a toilet. I got held underwater until I stopped breathing. I got blamed for other people's choices. Jasper's face went pale. That never happened. It did, I said. Just not in this version of events. He stared at me, confused and frightened, like I was speaking a language he didn't understand. Go home, Jasper, I said. Figure out your own life. I'm done fixing things for you. I closed the door and locked it. For a long time, he stood there on the porch. I could hear him breathing through the wood. Could hear the soft sound of him crying. Part of me wanted to open the door, to take it back, to be the old Yara who couldn't stand to see someone in pain. But that Yara was dead. And I wasn't going to resurrect her for someone who'd held her head underwater. They came on a Friday. I was in the kitchen, helping my mother make breakfast, pancakes because it was my turn to choose, and I'd never been allowed to choose before. She was laughing at something I'd said, her hand on my shoulder, when the mail slot clattered and an envelope slid onto the floor. It was thick. Official. The return address said National Merit Scholarship Corporation. My mother picked it up, her hands trembling. Yara, is this? Open it, I said, even though my heart was racing. She tore open the seal and pulled out the letter. Her eyes scanned the page and for a moment she was completely still. Then she started to cry. What? I grabbed the letter from her hands. What does it say? Dear Yara Hansley, congratulations. You have been selected as a recipient of the National Merit Excellence Scholarship. Your outstanding performance on the qualifying examination places you in the top 1% of all test takers nationwide. The scholarship provides full tuition and fees at any accredited four-year institution of your choice, along with a living stipend of $10,000 per year. Please see the enclosed materials for further details. My mother was sobbing now, her arms wrapped around me, her face buried in my hair. I'm so proud of you, she kept saying over and over. I'm so proud of you, baby. I hugged her back, and for the first time in 2 lives, I let myself cry too. The class group chat exploded. Marcus, did you guys see the scholarship list? Tiffany, Yara got the national merit. Kevin, no way. Really? Tiffany, top 1% apparently. Marcus, I got a 1120 after the penalty. That's not even close to what I needed. Tiffany, I got 1080. My parents said I can still go to community college, but I have to live at home. Kevin, I got 1150. Same situation. Lily, I got 950. I'm not even going to college at all. I'm applying to trade school. Marcus, what about Sienna? Tiffany, she didn't take the makeup so she doesn't have any score. Kevin, she's probably going to take a gap year or something. Marcus, a gap year for what? She failed on purpose. Tiffany, I know. I can't believe we trusted her. Lily, I can't believe we blamed Yara for everything. Silence. For a full minute, no one typed anything. Then, Tiffany, that was messed up. Marcus, we really thought she called the teacher. Kevin, she didn't though. Mr. Jordan showed up because someone from the bar reported underage drinking. Tiffany, who told us Yara called him. Lily, Sienna did. Marcus, and we just believed her. Tiffany, we always believed her. Kevin, Jasper believed her the most. Lily, where is Jasper anyway? Tiffany, I heard his parents disowned him. Marcus, what? Tiffany, not really disowned, but they're not paying for anything. He has to get a job and pay rent. Kevin, that's harsh. Tiffany, his family's pretty traditional. They don't mess around with grades. Marcus, I almost feel bad for him. Lily, I don't. He broke Yara's phone. Tiffany, and he grabbed her at the bar. And at the library. Kevin, yeah, that was not okay. Marcus, Sienna really had him wrapped around her finger. Tiffany, she still does probably. Kevin, I heard she's dating some guy from the private school now. Tiffany, of course she is. She landed on her feet like always. Marcus, she always does. Lily, I'm just glad I'm not her. Tiffany, same. Kevin, same. The ceremony was held in the school gymnasium, because it had rained the night before and the football field was a swamp. Folding chairs had been arranged in neat rows, and parents filled them with cameras and tissues and bouquets of flowers. I walked in wearing my cap and gown, my tassel swinging with every step. My mother was in the 3rd row, crying already, clutching a box of Kleenex like it was a lifeline. The rest of my class sat in alphabetical order. I was near the end. Hansley came after Harrison and before Hartford, which meant I had time to observe. Sienna Huntington sat 2 rows ahead of me, her golden hair perfectly curled, her gown pressed and spotless. She was smiling, laughing at something the person next to her said, like she hadn't ruined half the class's futures. Like she hadn't manipulated, lied, and schemed her way through 4 years of high school. Jasper sat at the far end of the row, hunched over, his tassel crooked. He didn't look at anyone. When his name was called, he walked to the stage with his head down, accepted his diploma without making eye contact, and walked back to his seat like he was trying to disappear. The rest of the class was subdued. A few students cheered when their names were called. The ones who'd done well despite everything. The ones who hadn't gone to the bar that night. But most of the ceremony felt muted, like a funeral dressed up as a celebration. When they called my name, Yara Hansley, my mother stood up and cheered so loudly that half the gymnasium turned to look at her. I walked across the stage, shook the principal's hand, and took my diploma with a smile that felt like sunshine. After the ceremony, people came up to me. Tiffany found me by the refreshments table, her eyes red from crying. Yara, she said, her voice thick. I'm sorry. I waited. I'm sorry for the bathroom, she continued, her words tumbling out. And the bar. And the library. I'm sorry for not standing up for you when I knew you were right. I'm sorry for, she stopped, wiped her eyes. I'm sorry for everything. Thank you, I said. Can we be friends again? I looked at her. Tiffany Miller, who'd watched Jasper shove my head into toilet water and done nothing. Tiffany Miller, who'd recorded it on her phone and posted it to the group chat. Tiffany Miller, who'd only turned against Sienna when it became clear which side was winning. No, I said. But I appreciate the apology. Her face fell. Yara. I'm not the same person I was before. I picked up a cup of punch and took a sip. And I'm not interested in going back. I walked away before she could say anything else. Marcus came up next. Then Kevin. Then Lily. They all said the same things. I'm sorry, I was wrong, I should have stood up for you. And I gave them all the same answer. Thank you, but no. I wasn't being cruel. I wasn't trying to hurt them. I was just done. Done performing. Done pretending. Done setting myself on fire to keep other people warm. Jasper waited for me by the parking lot. He was leaning against his car. A beat-up Honda that his parents had given him after taking away the BMW. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished somehow, like the past few weeks had hollowed him out from the inside. Yara, he said. Can we talk? I stopped a few feet away. We're talking. Not like this. He pushed off from the car and walked toward me. I meant, can we go somewhere? Get coffee? Just talk, like we used to. We never talked like that, I said. I thought we did. But we didn't. He flinched. That's not fair. No. What wasn't fair was you choosing Sienna over me. What wasn't fair was you believing her every time she lied about me. What wasn't fair was you holding my head underwater, while I begged you to stop. Jasper's face went white. That never happened. It did. In your dreams, maybe. Or your imagination. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Look, I know I messed up. I know I was an asshole. But I never did anything like that. I would remember if I. Would you? I tilted my head. You don't remember a lot of things, Jasper. You don't remember the time you pushed me down the stairs in 6th grade, because I told the teacher you were cheating. You don't remember the time you spread that rumor about me and Mr. Hernandez. You don't remember the time you told the whole school I was sleeping with the principal to get better grades. They were just jokes. They weren't jokes. They were never jokes. I stepped closer. You've been hurting me for years, Jasper. You just never noticed because I never complained. I never fought back. I just took it and smiled and told myself you didn't mean it. He stared at me, his mouth open. But I'm not doing that anymore. I stepped back. I'm going to college. I'm going to have a life. And you. I met his eyes. You're going to have to live with the choices you made. Yara, please. Goodbye, Jasper. I turned and walked to my mother's car. She was waiting in the driver's seat, her face worried, but she didn't ask questions. She just reached over and squeezed my hand as I buckled my seatbelt. You okay? She asked. I'm perfect, I said. And for the first time in 2 lives, I meant it. The letter arrived in August. Dear Yara Hansley, it is with great pleasure that we offer you admission to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology for the fall semester. I read it 3 times. Then I called my mother, who screamed so loud that the neighbors knocked on the door to make sure everything was okay. MIT. Full ride. The National Merit Scholarship covered everything: tuition, room, board, books. I wouldn't have to take out a single loan. I wouldn't have to work 3 jobs to make ends meet. I could just study, learn, be a student without the weight of the world crushing my shoulders. I accepted within the hour. 2 weeks before I left for Boston, I went for a walk. The neighborhood hadn't changed. The same houses, the same trees, the same cracked sidewalks that I'd walked 1,000 times before. I passed the Sterling's house, Jasper's house, and saw him sitting on the front porch, alone, staring at nothing. He looked up as I walked by. Yara, he said. I kept walking. Yara, please. His voice cracked. Just say something. Anything. I can't stand you ignoring me like this. I stopped, turned. You want me to say something? I asked. Yes. He stood up, hope flickering across his face. Please. I looked at him. This boy I'd loved, this boy I'd trusted, this boy who'd drowned me in a past life and blamed me for his own choices in this one. You were my best friend, I said. And you threw me away for someone who never cared about you at all. I hope you figure out why. Then I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard him start to cry. I didn't look back. The graduation ceremony at MIT was held in Killian Court, under a perfect blue sky. My mother sat in the front row, her hair streaked with gray now, her smile so wide it looked like it might split her face in half. I walked across the stage in my cap and gown, accepted my diploma, and shook hands with the dean. When I turned to face the crowd, I saw my mother standing up, cheering, waving a little sign that said my daughter, the engineer. I laughed. I couldn't help it. After the ceremony, I found a quiet spot under a tree and pulled out my phone. For years of silence, and I still lurked in the class group chat occasionally. Old habits. Marcus. Can't believe it's been 4 years. Tiffany. I know, right? Kevin. Anyone heard from Sienna? Lily. I saw her on Instagram. She's living in LA now. Marcus, doing what? Lily, I don't know. Modeling maybe. She posts a lot of bikini pictures. Tiffany. Of course she does. Kevin. What about Jasper? Lily. He's working at his uncle's auto shop. Still living in town. Marcus. That's kind of sad. Tiffany. He made his choices. Kevin. Yeah, but still. Lily, he posted something yesterday. A picture of a river. Tiffany, which river? Lily. The one by the old bridge. You know the one. Marcus. Why would he post that? Lily. I don't know. He wrote something like, I come here sometimes to think about what I lost. Tiffany. That's creepy. Kevin. That's Jasper. I put down my phone and looked at the sky. The river. The same river where Sienna had drowned in my past life, drunk, depressed, alone. But that hadn't happened this time. Sienna was alive in LA, posting bikini pictures to her 12,000 followers. Jasper was alive too, working in his uncle's auto shop, visiting the river to mourn something he couldn't name. And I was alive. Truly alive, for the first time in 2 lives. I stood up, brushed the grass off my gown, and walked toward my mother. Ready to go? She asked. Yeah, I said. I think I am. We walked out of Killian Court together, into the sunshine, into the rest of our lives. Behind us, the river kept flowing. But I wasn't looking back anymore.